Facing the roaring cruise missiles, I simply smiled and waved my right hand. A massive obsidian wall, 50 meters high, instantly erupted from the asphalt road. The bursting flames were as powerless as fireworks before the indestructible blocks. I pulled Nanami Aoi close by her shoulder and whispered to my stunned enemies. Welcome to my world. Welcome to Apex System, an exciting story is about to begin. The sound of my heart pounding violently against my chest drowned out the noisy chirping of the afternoon cicadas. I snapped my eyes open, and the fragmented gray world in my vision was instantly filled with blinding sunlight. There was no overwhelming collapse of pixels, no screams from my companions, and no cold longsword glowing with enchanted purple light piercing through my chest. Before me was a familiar oak-colored desk, and the air was filled with the long-lost scent of faint chalk dust. On the podium, the math teacher was mechanically turning a pair of compasses, drawing a perfect circle on the blackboard. I subconsciously pressed my hand against my chest. It was flat and warm. Kamishiro-kun? Kamishiro Saku-kun? The urgent calling brought my consciousness snapping back to reality. I turned my head and saw the face that had appeared in my nightmares countless times, Aoi Nanami. At this moment, she was still wearing that deep blue high school uniform, her ponytail swaying slightly with her movements. Her eyes were filled with worry, rather than the despairing silence I had seen in her gaze before I died in my previous life. You're sweating a lot, is it heat stroke? She whispered, quietly handing over a corner of a handkerchief that carried a faint floral scent. Instead of taking the handkerchief, I stared fixedly at my left wrist. There, beneath the skin, a faint blue stream of light seemed to be pulsing. I took a deep breath and issued a trembling command in my mind. System. Activate. VRRR. In the center of my retina, a translucent crosshair abruptly emerged, followed by 9 hotbar slots neatly arranged at the bottom of my vision. 3 small dots on the far right lit up. That was my personal inventory. Time until global cubification, 2 hours and 59 minutes. The countdown numbers flashed above the crosshair, scarlet and piercing. It's not a dream. I've truly been reborn. I've returned to the starting point of what future generations would call the pixel cataclysm. In 3 hours, the laws of physics will completely collapse. Every bit of matter on Earth will instantaneously condense into uniform cubes with 1-meter sides, and humanity will be forced into a Minecraft world filled with monsters and survival rules. In my past life, because I hesitated during the initial 24 hours, I missed the optimal period for primitive accumulation. I watched helplessly as villains like Hayato Kurosaki adapted to the rules first, establishing territories of brutal exploitation. In the end, he even pushed Aoi and me into the abyss for the sake of a few measly diamonds. In this life, I will never be a lamb led to the slaughter again. Kamishiro, what's wrong with you? Your expression. It's terrifying. Aoi shrank back slightly, cowering. I didn't have time to explain it to her. From my system's perspective, the desk in front of me had already undergone a subtle change. As I locked the crosshairs of my vision onto the tabletop, a faint line of text emerged. Oak desk, durability 1010, primary component, wood. In the logic of Minecraft, to get rich, you must first punch a tree. Without wood, you can't craft a crafting table. Without a crafting table, you can't enter industrial civilization. And at this moment, the school classroom was my best tree farm. I stood up abruptly. Kamishiro-kun? We are in the middle of class. The math teacher stopped his chalk and looked over sternly. My classmates all turned their heads as well, looking at me as if I were a madman. Especially Hayato Kurosaki, sitting in the back row. He curled his lip, his eyes filled with undisguised contempt. Ignoring everyone's stares, I clenched my right hand into a fist and slammed it down hard against the desk in front of me. Thud! A dull thud echoed throughout the classroom. What do you think you're doing? Sakaku Kamishiro, go stand in the hallway! The math teacher roared. I couldn't hear his cursing at all. In my field of vision, a web-like black crack appeared on the surface of the desk. This was what the system identified as mining progress. Thud! 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 I swung my fists mechanically and rapidly. Instead of the expected sharp pain in my knuckles, there was a strange sense of recoil. According to the system's logic, as long as I kept attacking, the object's durability would eventually drop to 0. The entire class fell into a deathly silence, everyone frozen in shock. To them, it looked as if I were in the throes of a frantic self-harming episode, courting death against a solid hardwood desk. Kamishiro, stop! You'll get hurt! Aoi cried out, reaching to grab my arm. The very moment she touched me, the fourth heavy blow landed. Asterisk crash. Asterisk. The once solid desk did not shatter into splinters under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Instead, it abruptly contracted, eventually transforming into a rotating, fist-sized miniature cube floating in midair. I reached out and grabbed it, and the wooden block vanished directly into my body. Obtained, oak log x1 dot. In the first slot of my hotbar, a brown wooden icon appeared. Disappeared? A classmate shouted, rubbing their eyes in disbelief. The desk. How is it gone? The teacher's compass dropped to the floor with a sharp clatter. An entire oak desk had completely vanished from the classroom in a matter of seconds, leaving not even a single screw behind on the floor. I felt a surge of heat flowing from my palm through my entire body. This wasn't just a piece of wood. This was the cornerstone of my dominion over reality. 2 hours and 55 minutes left. I whispered to myself, my gaze sweeping across the dozens of desks remaining in the classroom. Kamishiro, what the hell did you do? Hayato Kurosaki stood up as well. Although he also felt the eeriness of the situation, the arrogance in his bones made him habitually want to reclaim his dignity through violence. That kind of magic trick. I shot him a cold, sideways glance. In my past life, this man had awakened the plunderer, talent, and slaughtered countless innocents. But now, he was merely a mortal who understood nothing. Aoi, stand behind me. I reached back and grabbed Nanami Aoi's wrist. Her palm was covered in cold sweat, and her body was trembling slightly, yet she hid behind my back with surprising obedience. Saka Kamishiro! You're dead! Seeing that I was ignoring him, Hayato Kurosaki flew into a rage and charged over, swinging his fist straight at my face. The moment he swung his fist, my consciousness flickered, and a crafting interface materialized in my mind. 2 wooden planks can be crafted into 4 sticks. If I could make even a single wooden sword right now, killing him would be as easy as slaughtering a chicken. Unfortunately, all I have in my hand is a single log. But I have a more direct method. The instant Kurosaki closed in on me, I unleashed a rapid succession of strikes against the wooden floorboards beneath his feet. Thud, thud, thud! The floor's durability was extremely low. Just as Kurosaki's fist was a mere 5 centimeters away from me, the floorboard beneath his feet vanished instantly. Kurosaki stepped into empty air, his legs sinking halfway into a gap in the building's structure. Losing his balance entirely, he fell flat on his face in a pathetic heap, his chin slamming hard against the concrete beam, knocking out 2 of his front teeth on the spot. Blood was splattered everywhere. Help! Kurosaki wailed, his voice thick and indistinct. Terrified screams erupted within the classroom, and the once solemn lecture dissolved into complete chaos. The teacher's hands trembled as they pulled out a phone to call the police, but I knew that calling for help was already pointless. The telecommunications base stations were currently collapsing one by one, a precursor to the cubification. I pulled Aoi along, stepping over Kurosaki's back as we walked past. Kamishiro, where are we going? Aoi gripped the hem of my shirt tightly, her voice trembling on the verge of tears. To survive. I didn't look back, my gaze fixed beyond the window toward the distant Tokyo Tower. There, the clouds were gradually thickening into neat, grid-like patterns, as if the massive hands of God were preparing to completely tear down and reshape this bustling metropolis. 3 hours from now, there will be no more law, no more order, only the primal logic of the survival of the fittest. I felt the oak log, tucked inside my jacket. It was the first gift this world had given me. Run! Don't look back, follow me to the rooftop! I gripped Nanami Aoi's wrist tightly, sprinting through the screams echoing in the hallway. The walls of the school building began to emit a series of teeth-grating grinding sounds, not like a structure cracking, but more like countless giant Rubik's cubes being forcibly twisted. Kamishiro, what on earth is happening? Kurosaki is bleeding so much. Aoi's voice trembled with a sob. Her physical strength had clearly reached its limit, but I couldn't stop. The countdown showed only 60 seconds remaining. I glanced back, and the corridor behind us was undergoing a terrifying transformation. The originally smooth wall plaster was peeling off in sheets, and the exposed reinforced concrete was no longer irregular fragments, but was rapidly collapsing into sharp-edged, gray cubes. Some of the students fleeing for their lives were tripped by 1-meter square stone blocks suddenly bulging beneath their feet, while others watched helplessly as the corridor exit was sealed shut by instantly stacking cubes. This was the precursor to voxelization. The physical constants were being forcibly rewritten. Shut up and run if you want to live! I barked, dragging her with me as we burst onto the rooftop. Standing at the edge of the roof, I witnessed a sight capable of shattering the sanity of any civilized person. In the distance, the skyscrapers of Tokyo's Shinjuku district, which once pierced the clouds, looked as if they were being forcibly sliced by invisible giant hands. As the glass curtain walls shattered, they didn't scatter to the ground. Instead, they coalesced into transparent glass cubes as if drawn by a magnet. Time until global cubification, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 3 seconds. The moment the countdown hit 0, the world fell into an absolute, deathly silence. Immediately following, a low, heavy hum exploded from deep within the Earth's crust. Aoi crouched down in terror. I saw the rooftop beneath my feet instantly fracture into countless regular stone tiles, each 1 meter wide. It was as if the entire world had been forcibly switched to low graphics mode. The once lush campus trees now had leaves made of layered green cubes. In the distance, the bustling streets were filled with vehicles distorted into comical box-like shapes. Rumble. A corner of the school building began to collapse as its center of gravity shifted after the supporting structures became pixelated. The ground beneath Aoi's feet suddenly gave way to a large hole. She let out a short scream as her body plummeted toward the abyss below. Aoi. My heart tightened violently, and my brain instantly entered a state of hyperoperation. In my field of vision, the only oak log in my backpack was flashing. Craft. In my mind, that log was instantly dismantled into 4 wooden planks. Without a moment's hesitation, I tapped the empty air toward the direction where Aoi was falling. Place, oak planks. With a soft thud, a dark yellow wooden block appeared out of thin air beneath Aoi's feet, wedging itself firmly between the fractured walls. Aoi's body slammed heavily onto the planks. Though the impact left her face pale with shock, it successfully halted her fall. Grab my hand. I leaned over the edge and hauled her up with all my strength. The two of us collapsed on the rooftop, gasping for air. By now, Tokyo had been completely transformed. The original jungle of steel had turned into a grotesque labyrinth constructed from countless blocks. I stood up and looked around. The system interface had completely transformed. The original crosshair had been replaced by a pale gold pickup radius. Let's begin, I whispered to myself. I walked over to the water tank on the rooftop. What was once a solid stainless steel structure had now turned into an iron block, shimmering with a metallic luster. I raised my fist and struck the iron block with force. Thud! 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 Although I haven't crafted a wooden axe yet and the speed of mining iron ore by hand is agonizingly slow, I must gather these initial metal resources. Mining progress 10%. 0.3%. Jean Dai, look over there! Aoi suddenly pointed toward the playground, her voice trembling uncontrollably. I looked in the direction she was pointing. On the playground, several students who hadn't managed to escape were huddled together, but their bodies were undergoing a grotesque contortion. Their skin had turned a coarse grayish purple, their eye sockets were deeply sunken, and low growls that didn't sound human emanated from their throats. Those are zombies, the lowest ranking yet most lethal predators in this blocky world. Even worse, several massive creatures with 8 slender limbs had suddenly spawned out of thin air onto the once flat grass blocks. Spiders. And zombies. I clenched my fists. Among the 10,000 survivors from the real world, I fear fewer than 10 would realize the threat these monsters posed on the very first day. Thud! With a final dull thud, the cistern before me vanished, and 3 shimmering iron ingots leaped into my backpack. Obtained, iron ingot X3. Aoi, don't look down, look at me. I gripped her shoulders, speaking rapidly. You need to remember every single word I'm about to say. This world has gone mad. The old money, power, and laws are all useless now. From here on, these blocks are the only truth. As I spoke, I opened the 2x2 crafting grid in my backpack. I tried placing the 3 remaining wooden planks around a log. No, my memory was a bit fuzzy. I forced myself to calm down, and broke the planks down into sticks. 2 sticks, 3 wooden planks. Crafting successful, wooden pickaxe X1. A wooden pickaxe, crude yet possessing a solid texture, appeared in my hands. The moment my fingers brushed against the wooden handle, a sense of control welled up within me. This is the first step. I gripped the wooden pickaxe and swung it down hard against the rooftop ground beneath my feet. Compared to using my fists, the wooden pickaxe was several times faster. In less than 5 seconds, the concrete block, stone brick, beneath my feet was collected into my inventory. Are we leaving? Aoi asked, her voice trembling with plea as she watched the monsters gathering in increasing numbers on the playground. I'm scared. No, we're not leaving. I looked toward the stairwell of the school building, where the sound of fingernails scratching against the door could already be heard. We're going to turn this place into a fortress. I took the stone brick blocks I had just mined from my backpack and skillfully stacked them 2 layers high behind the only iron door leading to the rooftop. Bang! Bang! The thumping sounds behind the door continued incessantly, but no matter how great their strength, these zombies could not shatter the stone brick blocks determined by the system without mining tools. I was safe for the time being. I looked up at the sky, where the original sun had also turned into a perfectly regular square, emitting a cold, harsh light. I did a rough calculation. In this world, the duration of daylight had been shortened to the extreme, lasting only about 20 minutes. Once night falls, that is when the true hell begins. Aoi, help me collect all the plastic bottles over there, regardless of whether there's water inside. I pointed toward the trash can in the corner, where a pile of already cubified beverage cans lay scattered. Oh, okay. Although Aoi was still terrified, seeing my calm directions helped her force herself into motion. I stood at the edge of the rooftop, overlooking the entire collapsed school. Within the 10,000 square meter campus, I was the only one methodically gathering resources. As for Hayato Kurosaki, who was once so insufferable in my past life, he is likely trapped in some corner downstairs right now, staring in despair at the path to survival blocked off by cubes. In this life, I will trample every single cube under my feet. The wind on the rooftop grew biting, and the cube-shaped sun on the distant horizon was sinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. I looked at the countdown on the system interface. There were less than 10 minutes left before nightfall. Kamishiro, are we going to stay here the whole time? Aoi asked softly, her fingernails gripping the hem of her school skirt so tightly that her knuckles were white from the strain. No, staying here will get us surrounded. The rooftop is a dead end. I looked back at the iron door I had sealed shut with stone bricks. The sound of banging behind the door had ceased, replaced by a low, guttural growl like a beast grinding its teeth. We need to get to the asphalt road at the school entrance. There's something there I need. I took Aoi's hand and, instead of heading for the stairs, walked toward the edge of the rooftop. The originally vertical wall had developed some staggered, step-like structures due to the blockification. Jump down? Aoi peeked over the edge and squeezed her eyes shut in terror. This is the 5th floor. It's not jumping, it's building. With a single thought, the wooden planks from my backpack instantly appeared in my hand. I leaned over the side and clicked toward the outer wall below. With a few soft thuds, several planks hovered steadily in midair, forming a simple spiral staircase. This was the most irrational part of the Minecraft system. The laws of gravity were selectively applied here. Taking a trembling Aoi with me, I used these floating blocks to descend quickly to the ground. The playground was already in total chaos. The once familiar high school building now looked like a massive tombstone constructed from gray and dull yellow toy blocks. Avoiding the zombified students who were tearing at the vegetation in the flower beds, we rushed onto the highway just outside the school's main gate. The road surface here had completely transformed into a grid pieced together from countless 1-meter square stone blocks. In the eyes of an ordinary person, this was just a broken road. But in my eyes, it was an inexhaustible armory. Aoi, keep an eye on our rear for me. I didn't have time to explain. I pulled out the wooden pickaxe, its durability already halved, and swung it fiercely into the asphalt road. Clang! 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 Dull thuds echoed through the deathly silent street. The tip of the wooden pickaxe collided with the hard stone bricks, sending a few sparks flying. Although it was technically manual mining, this system-assisted excavation stripped away a significant amount of the block's durability with every swing. Obtained cobblestone X1. Obtained cobblestone X1. Every few seconds, a meter-deep hole would appear in the road, while heavy stone resources accumulated in my inventory. Jean Dai! They're coming! Aoi suddenly let out a scream, pointing her finger toward the school gate. 3 zombies, wearing tattered tracksuits, were staggering toward me. Their faces were highly pixelated, a greedy light gleamed from their green eye sockets, and their arms were held out stiffly in front of them. Just a little longer. I gritted my teeth, swinging the wooden pickaxe so fast it was nearly a blur. Only 2 blocks of stone left. 20 meters, 15 meters. The foul stench of the zombies had already drifted to the tip of my nose on the wind. Clang! The final cobblestone dropped into my inventory. I snapped my wooden pickaxe away, my consciousness instantly diving into the crafting interface. In this purgatory known as reality, ordinary steel blades would bounce off a monster's defense, but weapons synthesized by the system possessed absolute attribute suppression. I tapped rapidly in the void. A wooden plank decomposed into sticks, and 2 freshly mined cobblestones were stacked together. Synthesizing. A soft white light converged in my palm. Immediately after, a longsword with a primitive design and a cold, gray luster appeared in my hand. Stone sword, attack damage +5, durability 131/131. The edges of this sword were incredibly sharp, a physical, geometric straight line that surpassed modern nanogrinding technology. There were no curves, only absolute sharpness. Roar! The lead zombie had already lunged forward, its blackened fingernails only centimeters away from Aoi's shoulder. Get back! I stepped to the side, my stone sword tracing a perfect upward arc. There was none of the resistance I had expected. The feeling of the stone sword slicing into the zombie's body was like a hot knife through butter. The moment the zombie's pixelated torso touched the blade, its movement ground to a halt, and its entire body was sliced diagonally in two from the left hip to the right shoulder. Clatter! There was no spray of blood. The zombie's mangled body simply crumbled into countless tiny specks of gray dust before vanishing into the air, leaving behind only a dark red, meat-like lump on the ground. Obtained, rotten flesh X1. The remaining two zombies froze for a moment, as if their barren brains couldn't comprehend such an instantaneous death. I didn't give them a chance. With a backhand horizontal sweep, the blade's edge sliced precisely across their necks. Two blocky heads flew up in unison, then dissipated in midair. So amazing. Aoi stared blankly at the stone sword in my hand. Did you just manifest that out of the road? I felt the texture of the hilt in my palm. It was a sensation of steady, formidable power. In present-day Tokyo, perhaps even in the entire world, I was the only one armed with Stone Age weaponry. But this small amount of power was still far from enough. I looked up at the western sky, where the last sliver of the setting sun had already sunk below the horizon. The entire city was instantly shrouded in an oppressive, dark purple hue. A woo! From the distance came a mournful wolf howl, accompanied by a clack-clack, sound similar to bones grinding together. The real monsters are coming out. I gripped the stone sword with a reverse hold and pulled Aoi behind me, my gaze locked on the pitch-black alleyway ahead. We need to find a place with an iron door. Stone won't stop what's coming next. The battle just now was merely a warm-up. With the birth of the first stone sword, my age of synthesis has only just begun. And in the face of those gradually glowing red eyes, the first thing we need to do is dig out an underground fortress within these pixelated ruins. Go to the subway entrance! I pulled Aoi along, sprinting toward the depths of Shinjuku while stepping over the deep pits I had dug into the ground. The entrance to the Shinjuku subway station was unrecognizable. The once spacious stairs had regressed into orderly, gray stone brick blocks extending downward at a 45-degree angle. The security shutters at the entrance had twisted and shrunk, transforming into rows of iron bar blocks shimmering with a cold metallic luster. I pulled Aoi and rushed into the station hall. Behind us, the hollow and sharp sound of grinding bones echoed from the night-shrouded streets of Shinjuku. The skeleton archers were limbering up their joints. Kamishiro, it's so dark in here. Aoi clung tightly to my arm. The power system inside the subway station had long since completely collapsed. The once bright billboards and indicator lights were all extinguished, leaving the surroundings shrouded in a deep, deathly silence. However, faint outlines were visible in my line of sight, a basic visual correction granted to players by the system for navigating the darkness. I took out stone bricks from my backpack and quickly sealed the area behind the entrance's iron gate with 2 layers of stone blocks. The sounds of impacts and roars were instantly cut off by the thick stone wall. Safe, at least for now. Aren't we going down further? We might find shelter at the platform. Aoi pointed toward the escalator leading to the first basement level, which now looked like a series of pitch-black blocky steps. No, the platform is a sealed space. If monsters flank us from both ends of the tracks, we'll be like prey trapped in a dead end. I shook my head and crouched down on the flat concrete, stone brick, floor in the center of the station hall. Experience from my past life told me that to survive the first week of the pixel apocalypse, a stone sword alone was far from enough. Skeleton arrows and creeper explosions could easily tear through the defenses of stone tier equipment. I had to upgrade my weapons and armor to the Iron Age before dawn. Beneath Shinjuku's subway station lies a dense network of urban pipelines and geological strata, making it the fastest place to acquire iron ore. Aoi, sit on this bench and rest. Help me listen to our surroundings. If you hear any hissing sounds, call me immediately. After giving my instructions, I pulled the newly crafted stone pickaxe from my backpack. It was heavier than the wooden one, its tip gleaming with a dull gray luster, providing a solid sense of security in my grip. I took a deep breath, planted my feet apart, raised the stone pickaxe, and swung it down hard against the ground beneath me. Clang! The crisp sound of the pickaxe striking stones sent ripples of echoes through the empty station hall. Shards of rock flew in all directions, but before they could hit the ground, they dissolved into a faint gray shimmer and vanished into my backpack. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. I didn't use the extremely dangerous, vertical digging method. That's a major taboo for veteran players, because you never know if the next swing will reveal solid ground, searing lava, or a bottomless abandoned mineshaft beneath your feet. Instead, I used a staircase descent. For every 2 blocks I dug down, I moved 1 block forward, ensuring I always had a way out. Kamishiro, if you dig like this, won't the foundation collapse? Aoi looked at me with concern. She was sitting not far away, clutching the plastic bottle she had brought from school, her face filled with confusion over these unfamiliar laws of physics. In this world, as long as you don't destroy the supporting blocks, the structures above will never cave in, I explained, swinging my stone pickaxe as sweat poured off me. These are the rules of the new world. It doesn't care about science, only system logic. As the depth increased, the surrounding light grew dimmer. By the time I had dug about 15 meters down, into the rock layer directly beneath the subway station, it was already pitch black. System. Player detected digging deep underground for the first time in a lightless environment. Hidden achievement unlocked. Delver in the dark. System reward obtained, passive skill. Or vein X-ray. Has awakened. The sudden system notification chimed loudly in my mind. Immediately afterward, a wave of warmth washed over my eyes. As the heat dissipated, the dark world before me underwent a world-shaking transformation. The gray rock blocks, which had been pitch black, now appeared nearly translucent in my field of vision. Deep within this translucent gray rock layer, countless faint glimmers were actually flickering. 3 meters to the left and 5 meters below my feet, there were several blocks scattered with dark brown spots. Those spots shimmered with a distinct metallic texture through the translucent rock. That's iron ore! I was ecstatic. In my past life, I had only heard rumors that top-tier explorers could obtain various system talents, but I never expected that by being reborn, I would trigger such a divine skill at this moment. With or vein X-ray, I would no longer have to dig blindly underground. I could avoid countless lethal lava pockets and caverns, and head straight for the resources. Kamishiro? Why did you stop? Aoi's voice drifted down from above the pit, sounding slightly nervous. It's nothing, I found something good. Suppressing the excitement in my heart, the speed of my stone pickaxe increased once more. This time, my excavation route was no longer a blind staircase. Instead, I dug with precision toward the clusters of iron ore blocks shimmering with a dark brown light. Clang! 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 The stone pickaxe collided with the hard iron ore, producing a sound that was crisper and more ethereal than the thud of striking ordinary cobblestone. With the final swing of the pickaxe, a rough stone block speckled with brown spots and emitting a faint metallic luster popped out with a soft pop, hovering in midair before flying into my palm. Obtained, iron ore X1. The first one. I gripped the heavy ore tightly. In my perspective view, this iron vein consisted of a full 8 blocks connected together. As long as I mined them all, I wouldn't just be able to craft an iron sword. I would even have the prototypes for an iron shield and a full set of iron armor. In the darkness of the deep underground pit, I swung my stone pickaxe again and again, each strike accompanied by sparks from the metal collision. Those shimmering brown glimmers were, in my eyes, the steps leading to the summit of a new world. After completing the first stage of accumulation deep beneath Shinjuku Station, I moved with Aoi to a Family Mart convenience store on the surface. This convenience store had now transformed into a sealed box composed of white and blue plastic blocks. During the first 12 hours of the apocalypse, food and water were the focus of everyone's struggle. But I chose this place not just for the blockified rice balls and mineral water on the shelves, but for its location. It sat on a 4-way intersection with an excellent field of vision, and the back door led directly into a hidden narrow alley. In a corner of the convenience store, a furnace, built from 8 cobblestones, radiated a searing heat. Inside the hearth, charcoal burned quietly, smelting the iron ore I had brought up from the underground into pure iron ingots. Gene dye here. Aoi handed over a red powder that emitted a faint crimson glow. This was redstone dust. In the high-voltage control room of the subway station, those high-tension cables and signal boxes hadn't turned into scrap metal after being blockified. Instead, they had become redstone blocks imbued with a mysterious energy. Using the system, I had easily ground them down into the most basic redstone dust. Thanks for the hard work. I took the redstone and combined it with the iron ingots I had just smelted, along with a bow crafted from string and sticks. I began to set things up rapidly across the ceiling and lintel of the convenience store. I embedded a dispenser, crafted from cobblestone and redstone dust, into the signage block above the store's main entrance. Inside the dispenser, I stuffed iron-tipped arrows I had crafted using pebbles and feathers. Next, I dug a pit 2 meters deep and 3 meters wide beneath the steps in front of the door. Carrying a bucket of lava drawn from the ruptured boiler pipes in the lower levels of the subway station, I slowly poured it into the bottom of the pit. The bright orange lava churned in this voxelized world, defying physical constants and emitting lethal heat, yet eerily failing to ignite the adjacent asphalt blocks. Finally, I used pistons and redstone circuitry to cover the pit, layering the surface with gray carpet blocks that looked identical to the surrounding pavement. As soon as you step on the pressure plate at the entrance, the redstone signal instantly cuts power to the pistons, causing the support blocks beneath the carpet to retract and reveal the lava below. Simultaneously, the dispensers above unleash a hail of arrows at a rate of 5 shots per second. It was a simple, yet absolutely lethal redstone trap. "Someone's coming," Aoi whispered, her voice dropping low as she kept watch by the window, her body instinctively shrinking back. I patted her shoulder, signaling for her to retreat behind the furnace. Then I gripped my newly crafted iron sword and stared coldly out the window. On the street, 7 or 8 people in a hurried rush had gathered at some unknown point. They held golf clubs, crowbars, and even a fire axe in their hands. Leading them was a burly man with a rugged, fleshy face. His suit was torn to shreds, and his face was smeared with dried blood. "Boss, there's a convenience store here. The lights inside are actually on," a scrawny, sharp-featured lackey shouted excitedly. The brute addressed as boss kicked aside the rubble on the ground, staring greedily at the convenience store's intact glass door. When he saw the neatly arranged block-shaped food on the shelves inside, as well as Aoi and me standing behind the counter, a cruel glint flashed in his eyes. "Hey! You brats inside!" The brute slammed his fire axe heavily against the convenience store's explosion-proof glass, producing a dull thud. "If you know what's good for you, open the door. Hand over the food and that woman, and I might consider letting you live." I stood behind the counter, my expression as calm as a pool of stagnant water. "Looters are not welcome here." My voice carried through the closed door, sounding cold and clear. "Huh! Kid, have you lost your mind?" the burly man sneered. "Do you think this is still a world protected by the police? I've already smashed the heads of 3 monsters out on the street, and I don't mind adding yours to the count. Boys, smash this damn glass open." "Yeah. Break it down. The little chick inside isn't half bad." The lackeys behind him burst into laughter, brandishing their weapons as they prepared to charge forward. "Kamishiro." Aoi closed her eyes behind me, her hand trembling slightly as she gripped the corner of my shirt. "Don't be afraid," I said flatly. The burly man took the lead, stepping roughly onto the stairs in front of the convenience store. His right foot landed precisely on the gray pressure plate that blended seamlessly with the ground. Click. A faint mechanical clicking sound rang out, barely audible amidst the noisy shouting and cursing. But immediately following that, a grating screech echoed from the ground. The gray carpet tiles beneath the burly man's feet retracted to both sides without warning, instantly exposing a deep pit of churning, molten lava to the air. He didn't even have time to scream before his momentum sent him plunging straight into the magma pool. Help. It's so hot. In the system's calculations, lava deals extremely high continuous true damage. The man struggled desperately in the magma as his body began to flicker with the red shimmer representing injury. In just 3 seconds, his suit, his fire axe, and his entire being were vaporized in the searing heat, leaving only a few faint experience orbs floating in the void. "Boss?" The lackeys behind him slammed on the brakes instantly, their faces turning pale with terror. Their legs went weak as they stared at the deep pit of churning lava before them. But this was only the first half of the trap. The moment the pressure plate was stepped on, the redstone signal had already formed a perfect closed-loop clock circuit through the redstone repeaters. Whiz! 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 From within the convenience store sign overhead, a sharp whistling sound suddenly erupted. Dozens of arrows with iron tips, possessing absolute trajectories under system correction, transformed into a dense curtain of rain, blanketing the remaining thugs from above. Thwack! 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 My leg! My eyes! These thugs, who in times of peace only knew how to bully the weak, were as fragile as paper before the redstone repeating crossbow, a weapon whose precision surpassed that of modern industry. The bolts pierced through their shoulders and chests with unerring accuracy. With every shot fired, a massive chunk of their health bars vanished. In just 10 short seconds, the curses outside the door turned into agonizing wails, before finally fading into a deathly silence. The 7 thugs hadn't even managed to touch the convenience store door before they all transformed into a pile of scattered crude weapons and a few stray copper coins, system drops. On the road in front of the convenience store, nothing remained but the deep pit of churning lava, emitting an eerie red glow in the dark of the night. I walked over and pulled the lever next to the door. The pistons closed once more, the gray carpet recovered the pit, and the floor was so clean it looked as if nothing had ever happened. Dimensional strike. I picked up an iron crowbar dropped on the ground, tossed it into the furnace as raw material, and turned to give the stunned Aoi a slight smile. See, I told you, in this world, blocks and redstone are the only gods. Chiyoda Ward was terrifyingly quiet in the night. Around the once bustling Imperial Palace, massive, man-made mountain ranges, stacked from blue-gray stone blocks now loomed. The ancient buildings that once symbolized power and history had, under the laws of pixelation, collapsed into layered, misaligned dungeon entrances. I led Aoi through a pixelated forest of withered trees. The trees here had all turned into dark brown square pillars, while the leaves were thick green blocks. Kamishiro, why are we here? Aoi asked in a low voice. She tightly gripped the iron sword I had just crafted for her. Though her movements were still awkward, her gaze was already much firmer than it had been back at school. The foundations here reach dozens of meters underground and are structurally sound. Most importantly, the bedrock layer beneath the Imperial Palace is purer than that of the subway stations. I stopped at the edge of a collapsed moat, my gaze locked onto a dark opening ahead. It was originally a ventilation shaft for the palace's underground chambers, but had now evolved into a wide mine shaft. Hidden there is the hard currency that will allow us to truly dominate this world. To gain a foothold in this collapsed order, iron tools are merely the starting point. According to the system's judgment, while an iron sword is sharp, it cannot carry higher-level law powers. Only diamonds, those deep blue crystals formed under billions of tons of pressure in the deepest reaches of the earth, are the tickets to achieving godhood. I didn't rush inside. Instead, I first placed a few torches at the entrance. Sizzle! The moment the torch came into contact with the air, it emitted a steady yellow glow. Under the system's light source laws, a single torch could instantly illuminate a radius of 15 meters and would never burn out. We excavated downward along the steep stairs. As the depth increased, deep black veins began to appear in the surrounding rocks. Those were deep slate blocks. At this moment, my X-ray or vein ability was fully active, my vision piercing through layers of stone bricks. At a depth of 45 meters underground, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. Extremely rare spots of light, emitting a dreamlike sky blue shimmer, appeared at the edge of my vision. Found it. I picked up the pace of my digging. The stone pickaxe in my hand had been replaced by a refined iron one imbued with the omen of efficiency. With the rhythmic clank-clank of the strikes, we continued to descend deeper. Finally, after breaking through a massive slab of deep slate, that soul-stirring flash of blue finally bloomed in the darkness. It was a crystal-clear, diamond-shaped gem embedded within the coarse rock. So beautiful! I couldn't help but gasp in wonder. Even in such a brutal apocalypse, the innate human fascination with top-tier gemstones had not vanished. Obtained, Diamond X2 dot. Obtained, Diamond X1 dot. I mined 8 diamonds in a row, each one heavy and emitting a cold aura. But this was only the first step. Instead of immediately crafting a diamond sword, I took a bucket of water from my backpack and poured it over a small underground lava pool churning deep within the cave. Hiss! A massive amount of steam rose as the once crimson lava cooled rapidly, condensing into hard, dark purple blocks with eerie patterns. Obtained, Obsidian X4. Only a diamond pickaxe can mine obsidian. With these few pieces of obsidian, combined with 2 diamonds and a book crafted from the paper and leather I previously scavenged from the convenience store, I finally gathered everything needed for that era-defining device. I placed a crafting table in the clearing of the underground palace. Guided by my consciousness, those precious materials began to rotate and recombine in the void. A moment later, a device with an obsidian base and a mysterious ancient book floating above it, its pages turning automatically, landed steadily on the ground. Enchanting table, activated. In that instant, the surrounding air seemed to freeze. Countless deep purple characters, shaped like ancient script, drifted out from the old book, pulsing around the device as if they possessed a life of their own. What? What is this? Aoi reached out to touch the characters, only to find her palm passing right through them. These are the laws. I took a deep breath and drew the refined diamond sword from my back. It had just been forged using the remaining diamonds from earlier, I placed the diamond sword onto the base of the enchantment table and poured in a small vial of bottle o enchanting, collected from defeating the zombies and mobs earlier. Purple characters began to flood frantically into the blade. The deep blue edge, once smooth as a mirror, now shimmered with a dreamlike purple glow. A low hum resonated from the hilt, as if some ancient entity were awakening. Enchantment successful, sharpness V, fire aspect 2, unbreaking 3. The moment I gripped the hilt, a surge of violent power rushed up my arm and straight to my brain. At that moment, a dense, clacking sound echoed from the depths of the mine. Over a dozen mutated skeleton soldiers, sensing the aura of the artifact, came swarming out of the darkness. The bone bows in their hands were drawn to full tension, and bone arrows let out a piercing whistle as they sliced through the air. Kamishiro, watch out! I didn't dodge. I simply delivered a casual swing of my sword. Vroom! There was no sound of physical impact, only a fan-shaped arc of purple sword light sweeping outward. The two skeleton soldiers charging at the front didn't even have time to scream. The moment they touched the sword chi, their entire bodies spontaneously combusted in midair, turning into two violently burning fireballs before crumbling into ash. The remaining arrow struck my iron armor, producing the sound of metal hitting rock before falling feebly to the ground. This is no longer an ordinary cold weapon. This is a divine blade possessing conceptual damage, transcending the laws of modern physics. I looked at the shimmering diamond sword in my hand, feeling the ceaseless surge of power flowing through my body. Aoi, let's go! I sheathed the long sword, its purple afterglow tracing a perfect arc in the darkness of the underground palace. From this very second, the rules of this city's game will be written by me. The morning glimmer pierced through the pixelated clouds, painting the streets of Tokyo in a layer of cold, hard gray. As Aoi and I stepped out of the Imperial Palace dungeon, the air was thick with the unsettling scent of gunpowder. Kamishiro, look over there! Aoi pointed toward the end of the intersection, her voice trembling slightly. Several off-road vehicles emblazoned with special markings screeched to a halt in the middle of the street. The doors swung open, and about 20 heavily armed men stepped out. Clad in bulletproof vests, and wielding rifles and shotguns, they were clearly a survivor group that had ransacked a police station or a self-defense force outpost. Standing at the very front was a man in a navy blue suit and tie. Kurosaki, one of my greatest arch-nemeses from my past life and once the most powerful real estate tycoon in this region. His originally elegant face was now clouded with malice, his eyes reflecting the arrogance of someone who held the power of life and death. Kamishiro Saku, I knew you weren't dead. Kurosaki toyed with the handgun in his hand with deliberate slowness, his tone as relaxed as if he were discussing a business deal. I searched for you near the school for a long time. I didn't expect you to hide in the Imperial Palace. How about this? Hand over the treasures you found underground and leave that little girl behind. I might give you a chance to work under me as a porter. I came to a halt, my right hand resting on the hilt of my diamond sword as my gaze swept over the armed forces behind him. Kurosaki, in this world, your real estate developer logic is already obsolete, I said calmly. Obsolete? Ha ha! Kurosaki burst into a wild laugh, suddenly raising his pistol toward the sky and firing a shot. Asterisk bang! Asterisk. The piercing gunshot echoed through the empty streets. Do you hear that sound? That's called order. In this absurd world made of blocks, gunpowder and lead are still the ultimate truth. Can those shiny stones of yours stop a bullet? Kurosaki's expression instantly turned vicious. Open fire! Aim for his legs, don't hurt the girl. At his command, over a dozen gunmen pulled their triggers simultaneously. Aoi, get behind me! I let out a low shout, my left hand grasping at the air as the system interface spun frantically in my consciousness. The 4 stacks of obsidian mined from the Imperial Palace dungeon were now neatly arranged in my hotbar. High-frequency kinetic energy impact detected. Player entering emergency construction mode. In this moment, my movements became faster than the limits of the human eye. From Aoi's perspective, I simply reached out and gave a light wave toward the empty air. Bang! 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 At the exact instant the bullets were fired, the muffled thuds of heavy objects hitting the ground erupted from the asphalt blocks. 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. As if by a miracle, dozens of obsidian blocks, radiating a deep purple glow and possessing a hardness that bordered on despair, instantly materialized from the void. They were not placed one by one. Rather, following a logic of mass generation, they instantly constructed a massive wall 4 meters high and 2 meters thick right before Aoi and me. Clang! 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 A dense hail of bullets slammed into the surface of the obsidian, producing crisp but futile collision sounds. Those rounds, capable of easily piercing through concrete, did nothing more than kick up a few sparks against the obsidian, a block known for its extreme blast resistance, before deforming and falling limply to the ground. After a full volley, not even a single scratch was left upon the obsidian wall. What? That's impossible! Kurosaki's smile froze on his face as he stared in horror at the purple defensive line that had suddenly surged from the ground. What kind of civil engineering magic is this? The bullets can't even scratch it. Civil engineering magic? I let out a cold sneer, my hands never stopping their movement. My hands blurred in midair, leaving afterimages as dozens of blocks were placed with precision every second. Click! 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 The once flat obsidian walls extended rapidly to both sides, then closed toward the center, as if they were alive. In just 3 seconds, a fully enclosed fortress formed around Aoi and me. The structure then surged upward, transforming into a fortified tower complete with arrow slits. I stood behind the obsidian battlements at the top of the tower, looking down at Kurosaki below. Kurosaki, your understanding of this world is still stuck 10,000 years in the past. I pulled the enchanted diamond sword, flowing with a purple glow, from my backpack. Even from a distance of dozens of meters, the oppressive aura of high-tier equipment was so heavy that the armed personnel below didn't even dare to breathe. Boss! We're out of ammo! That wall is too thick, it's like a solid iron tower! One gunman shouted in terror. He even tried to smash the obsidian with his rifle, but only for the bone-shattering recoil to snap his wrist. Kurosaki's body began to tremble. As he stared at the obsidian fortress standing in the middle of Shinjuku like an eternal monument, he finally realized that the person standing before him was no longer a student he could manipulate at will, but a master of laws wielding the divine authority of a new world. What kind of power is this? Kurosaki collapsed to his knees, his gun clattering into the pile of rubble. It's called survival, Kurosaki. I leapt from the tower, the tip of my diamond sword carving a brilliant streak of purple light through the air. And your game died back in the old world. As I landed steadily, the obsidian gates of the fortress slowly ground open, driven by redstone signals. A heavy sense of oppression, like a physical wave, instantly overwhelmed the group of self-righteous armed thugs. Kurosaki and his armed squad slumped amidst the ruins in front of the obsidian fortress, they were collapsing entirely as their ammunition ran dry. The survivors nearby, who struggled to endure in this pixelated world, now hid behind the broken walls, watching me with eyes filled with a mixture of terror and fanaticism. I paid no heed to the voices begging for mercy on their knees. In the center of my vision, at the very bottom of the system interface, a line of text flowing with platinum light was slowly emerging. Detected that the player has achieved the Solo Fortress Suppression achievement. Prestige has exceeded 10,000 points. Hidden reward triggered, Genesis Authority, Creative Mode, Trial version activated. Duration, 30 minutes. Authority description, ignore material consumption, ignore the laws of gravity, ignore construction speed. Possess absolute creative power. In that instant, I felt a qualitative leap in the power within my body. If I was merely utilizing the system's rules to survive before, then now, I was the rules themselves. I felt my body become as light as a feather, my feet slowly lifting off the dust-covered ground. Amidst Aoi's startled cry, I flew straight into the air, soaring over the towering obsidian walls to look down upon this devastated Shinjuku district. Kamishiro! Aoi looked up, her long hair dancing wildly in the wind, her eyes filled with sheer shock. Don't move, Aoi. I'm going to show you the world as it is reborn. With a gesture toward the void, I wrapped Aoi's body in a soft white light, gently lifting her to my side. At this moment, my vision had ascended to a near godlike height. I could see the earth divided into countless 1-meter square grids. With a mere thought, any matter could collapse or be reconstructed in an instant. The time has come, I whispered softly. I extended my right hand and made a gentle sweeping motion toward the most open area in the center of Shinjuku district. Rumble! Amidst the violent tremors of the earth, tens of thousands of snow-white quartz blocks, shimmering with a holy light, surged forth from the void like a rising tide. They no longer required me to place them manually. Instead, following the blueprint in my mind, they erected a massive pedestal covering over 3,000 square meters from the level ground in just a few short seconds. That wasn't all. With a single thought, I modified the gravitational constant around the base. 4 massive floating islands rose slowly around the central foundation, as waterfall-like water source blocks cascaded from the island edges, tracing shimmering curtains of water in midair that eerily failed to dampen the ruins below. Next came the main body of the palace, Gold blocks, emerald blocks, and intricately patterned chiseled quartz danced frantically in the air, as if directed by an invisible giant hand. Every second, over 1,000 blocks snapped precisely into place. A palace in the clouds, brimming with classical Western fantasy style yet imbued with the ultimate aesthetic of pixel art, rose abruptly from the ruins of what was once Tokyo Tower. Massive stained glass windows refracted kaleidoscopic rainbows under the sunlight, and the palace's dome pierced the heavens, as if reaching out to touch the pixelated sun. The survivors on the ground were completely stunned. Kurosaki stood with his mouth agape, his gun having long since fallen into the gutter. He stared at the miracle that had surged upward in a matter of minutes, looking as though his very soul had been drained from him. This was not something humans could achieve. This was a divine miracle. The 30-minute countdown was nearing its end. Carrying Aoi, I landed steadily on the palace's vast terrace, paved with platinum blocks. This was the highest point in Tokyo. The wind howled in our ears, and below lay the ruins like a disturbed anthill, while here remained the only sanctuary. I walked to the edge of the terrace, looking down at the tiny figures below. I activated the systems, world shout, function, and my voice was amplified countless times, echoing across the skies of Tokyo and ringing clearly in the ears of every survivor. I am Kamishiro Saku. The voice swept over Shinjuku, Shibuya, and Chiyoda like rolling thunder. The laws of the old world have been buried along with the collapse of order. Bullets cannot protect you, and money cannot save you. Only under the laws of blocks and redstone can true survival be achieved. I raised the diamond sword in my hand, its purple enchantment glow shimmering, and pointed it toward the heavens. From this day forward, this palace shall be the starting point of a new order. I will redefine the rules of this world. Those who obey me shall be granted territory to survive and resources to evolve. Those who defy me shall sleep eternally amidst these ruins. I looked at Aoi. She was staring back at me, and though there was a hint of fear in her eyes, it was overwhelmed by a fanatical sense of having found someone to lean on. Jean Dai. No, Saku-kun, right now you look just like... It's not that I'm like one, Aoi. I interrupted her, feeling the residual power lingering after the creative mode permissions vanished. I am the king of this apocalypse. At that moment, on the streets below, thousands of survivors began to kneel spontaneously toward the palace. In this era of collapse, power is the most primal form of religion. The spires of the Cloud Palace cast long shadows in the setting sun, shrouding the entirety of the ruins. And I, standing at the pinnacle of power, quietly awaited the first storm of the new world. The end. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.